The motivation for building my box is to create something that represents my father. Fusion 360 was a great way to plan and visualize my project. I always made sure I was wearing my appropriate protective equipment when necessary. Hair tied back, apron, safety glasses, earmuffs, dust mask, gloves, and appropriate footwear. Here I am cutting and ripping my timber to the desired lengths and widths. Here the bandsaw is a bit blunt, so it made it a bit difficult while cutting. The jointer gives a flat side and face. The tape was a central part to keeping my joints nice and sharp, as it stopped the splintering from occurring. The first cut was my inlay. The second cut was my outside timber. They didn't fit properly, so I had to chisel the corners to make them fit nice and flush. To make my timbers meet perfectly, I sketched it out on top of the piece that I was cutting. I didn't like the book match when it was glued up, so I came up with this strip of red mahogany to break it up a little bit. I had to recut and apply the new dominoes with this new strip of red mahogany in the middle. As my boards were too short, I made up this little jig so it would go through our thickness side and make a flat side. This jig allowed me to get a straight edge. This thick blade was able to cut my veneers out of my white beech boards without losing much wood. This glue up was quite big, so I needed my teacher's assistance to help me get it around before the glue dried. The timber split a little bit as my jig was not very supportive. Cutting two parallel cuts was essential for making my angles later on. This part was really important that I had it set up right so it came out square. Here I'm attaching the lid and the secret compartment, which I end up abandoning. This part I had to be careful with where my hands were to the blade, as it is open and can be dangerous. This is where the parallel cuts came in handy, as it allowed me to get a nice 57-degree cut from my marking gauge. Cutting my angle by hand was a bit scary on the linisher, but I took my time and by my surprise they turned out really well and fit quite nice. Here I set the drop saw on a 33-degree angle. Having access to this industrial CNC machine allowed me to get my job done over the holidays, which allowed me to get it on time. Using the orbital sander after it was glued allowed all the little gaps to be filled. Before glue off, I did many dry fits to see if it fit properly and adjusted the joints until it had a perfect fit, then I glued together. The joints were a tiny little bit off, but I had a little bit of sand and it fixed it up. To cut the lid off, we made a little jig to support it, and then we slid it through the table saw. To create the sliding compartment, I glued layers of different timbers and then cut it out on the CNC. This was a last minute option as I ran out of time to do my secret compartment. It took a lot of fiddling until I could line up my hinges perfectly. Here I had access to Russell's spray booth and I sprayed my nitrocellulose lacquer. Quick sand in between coats. Now finally, assembly. I really enjoyed creating the memory box and seeing it go from an idea to a finished product. Also, I'm really happy with how it finished up.